Hey, welcome to Sequentially Yours, Initially Mine. And this is a show where we look over this week's number ones and tell you which ones you should share with your friends and which ones you should send to your enemies to make them cry. We have a decent mix of stuff today, and I think you're going to like at least some of these. So let's dive right in and see what we got. All right, Grizzly Shark, written by Ryan Ottley, and also art by Ryan Ottley, colors by Ivan Placencia. Uh, if you could somehow make one joke stretch to 20 some pages, that's Grizzly Shark. It's exactly what it sounds like. There's a shark in the woods. And if anybody gets even so much as a cut, like they bite their tongue, the shark comes and eats them. And that's about it. It's a little gruesome, but not gruesome enough to be worth reading. It's not nearly as funny as it thinks it is. The art is a little slapdash, except on the shark at times, strangely enough. I like the shark. There are a couple of other attempts at jokes, but everything else is just so contrived that it's really just not worth the read. Grizzly Shark, I understand what's going on. It's trying to do something fun and, quite frankly, internet-y. I understand that, but the problem is that you also have to be clever, and it just isn't. Don't waste your money. Next. Alright, The Fix, new from Image Comics. Written by written by Nick Spencer. Artist is Steve Leiber. Of course, they switched those around because it's Image Comics. And colors by Ryan Hill. The Fix is entirely okay. It's not great. It's got an interesting concept to it, and the humor, when it hits hard, it hits well. The problem is that when it doesn't hit, it just falls flat on its face. There are no mediocre jokes in here. Every joke is either really good or really terrible. And that's where it sort of falls apart. Because while the really good jokes are in fact really good, the terrible ones tend to outnumber them just a little bit. Enough that I had trouble keeping going because I just didn't want to hear something dumb again. That being said, the concept is actually fairly interesting. The main character is a criminal, a sort of low-level criminal, specifically not like a cyber criminal or anything like that. In fact, he talks about how crime has sort of moved beyond him. He and his partner are, more of the smash and grab type. It's interesting that he always identified with criminals, like in Cops and Robbers, he liked to play the robber. In old westerns, he liked the black hats, etc. It's kind of a cool idea. The twist, of course, is that he and his partner are also cops. So they're crooked cops, but they're crooked cops with a sense of humor, which is not something that you see. Usually, the whole crooked cop thing is played very, very seriously in a sort of training day style. And The Fix doesn't do that. The Fix at least tries to inject humor. Even when it fails, I'll at least give it credit for making the attempt. It's worth the read for a first issue, but I'm not sure if I'm going to keep going with it. Alright. Bloodshot Reborn, actually, Annual 2016. Annuals tend to be one of two things. Either they are a self-contained story outside of the main continuity, or they are a collection of short stories following the character. This is actually the latter. And as a result, we have sort of a mixed bag, since several different people are taking it on, both in writing and art. So some of these are better than others. The first story is actually a lot of fun. Basically, it takes place at a camp that is clearly the camp from the Friday the 13th movie. It's clearly Silver Lake. Or not Silver Lake. You know what I mean. I'm Crystal Lake, because it's Silver Lake in this, so I was looking at Silver Lake. It's clearly Camp Crystal Lake, down to the point that you can actually see they replicated the Friday the 13th logo, the font there, which is kind of nice. And Bloodshot ends up fighting a slasher villain. It was amusing. The humor was very good. The art is actually phenomenal. I'm loving a lot of the art on the first one. As to the rest of them, again, a bit of a mixed bag. Some of them were really clever. Some of them were not so much. One of them got very, very meta and ended up in the at the Valiant. What's it called? At the Valiant Writers' Room, which was kind of fun. They brought in some of the other Valiant characters, which I enjoyed. All in all, it's worth the read, and if you want to get back into Bloodshot, or if you never got into Bloodshot in the first place, it's a good story. It's a good book in general, and this is a good way to get a kind of smattering of who the character is. Definitely worth checking out. Alright. Baltimore, Empty Graves. Baltimore is another character from Mike Mignola, who does Hellboy. And this is one of 5. Again, I understand what they're doing with it, but I'm not sure if they really hooked me. The idea is that it starts with certain characters from Baltimore's team, Lord Baltimore's team, already dead, and then we're doing flashbacks to see how the rest of the team got involved, and presumably we'll find out how these other people died, as we're also going through a parallel story where they're trying to get revenge for them. It's okay, but the sort of collected backstories format is A, very big this week, and I'll get to that again in a little bit, but B, it really does sort of help if the plot that ties them all together is a little bit more compelling, and this just isn't. They spent so much time developing how these characters became part of Lord Baltimore's group that they failed to explain why I care enough about the ones who died that I want to see them try to get revenge on them. For them, not on them. So, it's not bad. Mike Mignola knows what he's doing. Christopher Golden, I believe, on art. Oh, no. Christopher Golden helped with the story. Art was Peter Bergting. And the art is fantastic. Peter Bergting did a wonderful job with it. Some of the stories are really clever. It, again, much like Hellboy, it incorporates the supernatural without making it all-encompassing. It's really well done. That being said, though, maybe wait for the trade on this one, just so that you can keep going, because it's not compelling enough to go week to week on. Alright, next. As I was saying, collected backstories. Rough Riders. Rough Riders is part of another recent trend, which is steampunking history. In this case, Teddy Roosevelt, which, quite frankly, the fact that it has taken this long to steampunk Teddy Roosevelt really shocks me. I must have missed something, because this just makes perfect sense. It makes sense that Teddy Roosevelt would be a hero. It makes sense that to put a steampunk thing in there, it's not just slap some gears on it. It definitely draws enough from history in order to present a convincing alternative history. The writing's pretty good. The art is excellent. About the only thing where it falls apart is, again, what we have is collection of backstories. You see, we have all of the Rough Riders on there. Of course, not the historical Rough Riders. Each one of these is a historical figure from around that same time period that is going to be involved in this secret group to do secret special things during the Spanish-American War. So Joe Johnson in this case we saw Teddy recruiting him. Basically, Teddy getting recruited by a group of, quite frankly, literal businessmen sitting in a darkened room with cigars. it was a bit on the nose. Sorry, guy. Adam Glass. Yeah, Adam Glass is our writer here, so. Um, but yeah, and I'm just now noticing I was guessing at who these other people were, considering we only get to see him recruit Johnson and then say he's going to recruit Houdini next. I figured that the woman with the fringe and the gun was Calamity Jane, but now that I'm looking, I'm noticing that all of these are signed. So that's Annie Oakley, Thomas Edison, um, Eastman. I can't remember his first name, but yeah, Eastman Kodak, that guy, and of course Harry Houdini and Joe Johnson and Teddy Roosevelt. That's who our cast of character is, but we haven't gotten to that point. And again, because I'm now looking forward, we are now looking at essentially at least 1 to 2 more issues of just gathering people. That's kind of boring. That is a lot of groundwork to be putting through on a first issue. I think it would have probably been better to start in media res and then back it up and flashback it through. Which is not to say that the concept is bad, because it's not. And the character's not bad either, at least the ones we've been introduced to so far. My problem is that from a story perspective, it doesn't do what it needs to do, which is make me want to read issue 2. From an art perspective, the art style is good. Really excellent use of shadows, fantastic body proportions, good replicas of what the historical figures looked like, as far as we know. So it's an okay story. Aftershock is the publisher on it, and they're trying. They are trying very, very hard to find something that is really going to hit. And I really hope that they find something soon that is just going to hit hard. Because they keep coming out with things that are just so close. Okay, moving on. Gold Key Alliance from Dynamite Comics. This one I haven't gotten a chance to do any research on, but a lot of these are Valiant characters. In fact, I think all of them are. Magnus Robot Fighter, Turok Dinosaur Hunter, Solar was Man of the Atom, but this one's a woman, and what is it? Mighty Samson. And basically this book is yet another, let's put together a team by showing different pieces of it. This is the third one this week. At least this one shows all of the pieces and also gives us a through story that bookends the majority of it. And it's a through story that I actually care about. I want to know what's going on with these people. I want to know why they get together. About the only part of it that really kind of threw me was the Magnus Robot Fighter. It starts with him being a bodyguard or, working security for somebody. And he's talking with his partner, Agent Klain. And then very suddenly he attacks Agent Klain because she's a robot, but we have no idea how he knew or why this happened. It just kind of came out of nowhere. But otherwise, the characterization of the characters are good. The stories surrounding them are thematically appropriate for these characters, which I liked. And I'd like to see where it goes. I actually put this on my pull list already because I want to get the next issue. I don't want to miss it. So Gold Key Alliance, definitely worth looking at. Alright, Miss Fury from Dynamite. Miss Fury takes place during the 40s. She is a Watchmen-style, under-the-hood, Golden Age type hero. In other words, not super-powered, just highly trained. And they're trying to do it like a Golden Age comic in certain aspects. The problem is that they don't really commit to that. First of all, it assumes that we know comic book tropes, which, yes, we do, but that doesn't mean necessarily that I want to skip them. Yes, I understand that the woman that you're showing me is also Miss Fury, but you don't make that explicit at any point in time. You just assume that I'm going to assume that if you put a woman on the screen or on the page, if you put a woman on the page and there's a woman superhero or a woman hero, I'm going to just assume that one is the other. That's not how storytelling works. And I don't understand where she has learned these things. I don't understand why she is doing these things yet. And yes, you have to take some time, but because it's clearly intended to be an ongoing series, and you should take some time with it, but give me something to hold on to here. I'd say that the best thing about Miss Fury was it brought up a really interesting concept. And the concept was that there are more female heroes in 1944 because a lot of the male heroes were either drafted or signed up to go fight overseas. So it would make sense that, the women who were left behind, as much as they took over jobs in every other sector, would take over the heroing. That's a kind of cool idea, and I wish that the book spent more time on that and expanded on it, because that could be something to really focus on and hang this entire book's concept on, instead of just creating another Batman-like hero. There's a lot of potential in Miss Fury, but it's potential that I don't feel was fully realized, and hopefully will be fully realized in later issues, but just does not pass it in the first. Alright, so we are down to our number one for the week. And I'm probably a little biased on this, but it's Poe Dameron, number one. Poe is my favorite character from the new Star Wars. Oscar Isaac did a wonderful job with it. And this book does a pretty good job of portraying that same character. One of the big problems, of course, with a translation like this is that you have a new writer and you have very little material to work with. Poe is on camera for, 5 minutes? 10 minutes of a 2-hour... How long is Force Awakens? I don't know. As long as Force Awakens is, he is on screen for a very, very short period of time. But we're still expected to... we still gain an idea of who this person is. So I'm glad that they gave it to Charles Soule in order to write this, because, quite frankly, Soule is really good at identifying character traits, important ones, and reproducing them in new stories. In this case, this is a prequel so far. The story is... You know how Force Awakens starts with Poe Dameron on that planet talking to Mox von Sydow to get the thing that leads him to the MacGuffin? Well, in this case, we are seeing him find Mox von Sydow. Basically, General Leia has given him the assignment, said, here, you need to go and find this person so that you can find our MacGuffin. And he says, what if that person's not there? And she basically says, figure it out. That's why I hired you. So, he and Black Squadron are going to another planet, and they don't find Mox von Sydow, but they do find a step in the right direction. And we see sort of how that comes about. We start learning a little bit more about Black Squadron. Greg Grunberg's character, who's only there because J.J. Abrams thinks that Greg Grunberg is lucky for him. Snap Wexley is his name, by the way, which is the Star Warsiest name other than Poe Dameron that I can think of. And we learn a little bit about him. One of the members of Black Squadron was actually Poe's mother's wingman, which if you read Shattered Empire, you would have met him already. There are a couple other people. You start to get an idea of what their personalities are. You get to see Poe behaving, again, in a way that is consistent with his movie character, but also expands on that character a little bit. The art is actually really well done. It looks like the people in the film, at least the ones that we've seen. The coloring is amazing. The look on the X-Wings is great. The movements. Who is the writer, or who's the artist on this? Phil Noto. Phil Noto is an amazing artist when it comes to portraying movements. Especially when it comes to X-Wing combats, or X-Wing maneuvering, where you really have to portray in as few panels as possible an exciting space battle, and Noto is very, very good at that and does it very well in Poe Dameron. All in all, it's, again, for a first issue, this one works a little bit better. Even though it ends on a cliffhanger, it's part of a larger story. This one works a little bit better than most because we already know the ending. So we're really just filling in the middle here. I would feel a little bit differently if there wasn't The Force Awakens in order to give me an idea of where Poe goes from here. I know that he will eventually meet up with Mox Van Sydow on Jakku, and he will get the MacGuffin. He will get the thing that leads him to the MacGuffin, and get captured, meet Finn, etc., etc., etc. I know that's all going to happen, so I'm okay with, ending on cliffhangers here because I'm already invested in this character. That being said, as a standalone book, I would still be invested in this character. They give me enough about Dameron that I want to know what happens to him. They give me enough about Black Squadron that I want to know where these characters go. So, yes, definitely worth reading Poe Dameron. I am, again, another one that I've added to my pull list because, quite frankly, this was, when it comes to Star Wars comics, this was probably my favorite so far. Again, I'm a little biased. He was already my favorite character, but you know what? I'm trying to be as objective as possible, and this one still managed, even compared to Darth Vader, which is amazing, compared to the Chewbacca miniseries, which was also very, very good. Oh, and also there's a backup story in here, which I love, called Sabotage, which is admittedly just cute. It's BB-8 trying to help get these two, a pilot and a technician that clearly like each other, together. It's just fun. It's a silly little thing, but you know what? It made me smile. So, yeah. If you get a chance, I would definitely come out and do that. Some comic shops are giving out buttons and extra prints if you buy them this first week. So, run out and grab it if you can. See if you can get the extra button. Alright. So, that's what we had for the week. Only one book that I would say was really kind of not great. The rest of them were either okay, good, or really fantastic. There's a lot of good stuff on the shelf this week, and I would take the time this weekend, go and flip through, see what you like, look at the artwork. Definitely spend time at your local comic shop if you can. Support your local comic shop. Alright, so that's about all I have for this week. I don't know what your opinion's going to be, but these were initially mine. Take care.